Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of The Honest Hustle. I'm one of your hosts, Cam.
And I'm your other host, Shelton.
Shelton, how we doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, Cam. It's a blessing to be here today with you and Jordan.
Love to hear it. Today on our first episode of The Honest Hustle, we hope to share with you, our listeners and our audience, of what we're all about, why we decided to come together to do a show like this, and the overall goal of our content. Shelton, how did we get here, and why are we doing this?
Well, Cam, I believe this city needs a platform and an outlet like this where people can share their stories. I want this platform to show that nobody is truly ever alone.
Exactly. Without wasting too much of your time of us rambling, we're going to get to our first interview with Jordan, a recovering heroin addict who holds a very special spot in our lives and the community. Enjoy. Jordan, welcome to the show, and thanks for agreeing to do this.
How are you doing today, buddy?
Good.
Is there anything that you want to say to the listeners before we get going?
No, just hope that you enjoy. Hope there's an answer that you need to hear.
Well, we're going to have some heavy-hitting content for you today, and we hope that Jordan can help deliver that. And I just want to start off by asking Jordan, who are you and what kind of a story do you have to tell?
So I'm Jordan Williams. I am a recovering heroin addict. I think coming up on about 9 years on the 23rd of October this year. And it's been quite a journey. It's been a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of mistakes, a lot of, one step forward, two steps back, but I don't know. I'm very proud of how far I've come and the relationships that I've fixed and the person I've become and the friendships I've made, obviously. I'm very glad to be here with you guys.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. I'm very grateful that you guys chose me for this first interview. So I'm hoping it goes well. Yeah.
Well, to piggyback off of that, I guess, could you talk about some kind of like barriers or challenges or even stigma that's out there as it pertains to someone who's addicted in our society?
So I would have to say that like one of the biggest stigmas about addiction, period, is that I feel like a lot of people see it as a moral failing when it's more than just a moral failing. There's beyond like what the perception is that one person sees, there is science and there is personal opinion. So there is a lot showing that while we have the control of the first use, after that, the brain does take over and it's no longer a choice. It is a continual movement after that. I would hope that anyone who would ever say that it is a moral failing looks into it further than the actions and the what an addict has done and look further into like what is causing those actions. I don't think an addict chooses to be a bad human because they want to be a bad human. I think they are forced into a hand where they feel like that is their brain tells them that's the only thing they need. They don't need companionship. They don't need love. What they need is the using. And unfortunately, it is really hard to see past a lot of the negative things that addicts do. And as a former piece of shit, I know what it can be. So yeah, I guess that's it.
That's
Great answer.
I would like to ask you next I've got goosebumps just listening to you talking about that, but why do you think a story like yours that's so powerful and unique needs to get out there and be told?
Well, I guess in a way, I don't want it to seem in my own, like I don't see it as, there are people that will always have things worse than myself. And I've always lived by that. There's always someone that has something worse. But the thing is a lot of people, how do I say this? I want people to understand that like the reason that I speak my story is because I want someone else to hear it and to be able to reach out, to understand that they're not alone. There's a lot of things that happened in my life that I felt alone and that I felt abandoned or I felt unloved or unworthy. And the reason that I even speak my story, that I was so glad to be on here, is because I want someone to know that they feel unworthy of being better, being a better human, or just being loved, even by themselves. I want you to hear this and you to reach out and you to find someone, because there will be someone there for you and you aren't alone.
Well, we keep talking about this story. Take us to a younger version of yourself. What's the origin here?
So I'm the youngest child of 5. I have 4 older sisters. We grew up in pretty humble beginnings. I grew up in a trailer park. And like the thing is at a pretty young age, I knew that I felt different than most other people. And I don't know if that was, I don't know necessarily how to explain that, but I never felt like I belonged even then. I never felt like I was the same as other kids. I was a weird kid. I was like one of the weird kids, and I can fully admit that.
I went to school with you, Jordan.
Yeah, yeah. So like, there was a lot of things that happened in my childhood, and I don't know if we'll reach them later on in here, but my childhood is one of the biggest parts as to why I am who I am and why I was the way I was. I do thoroughly believe that you are a product of your environment, and I believe that has a lot to do with how you view life and how you treat life. And I think that's it.
We'll put a pin in that, I guess. So we talked about your childhood. What would you tell a younger version of yourself, knowing that your childhood was the root of a lot of this? What would you tell a younger version of yourself, knowing what you've been through now?
That it's not your fault. That the things that you went through and the things that you faced were never your decision. And while you blamed yourself and thought it was your fault, you were only a child. And you didn't know better, and you did the best with what you had. And you'll be all right. Yeah.
Was there ever a point in your young adolescent life or even into adulthood that you could even fathom going through what you did?
I mean, I'll tell you the truth. Like, did I ever think I was going to be a heroin addict? No. But the first time I ever used any substance, the first time I ever felt anything other than what I felt inside my own body and in my head, I knew that I'd rather be that altered state than I ever wanted to be what I felt on a day-to-day basis. The insecurity and the confusion and the unknowing of who I was, the fear of life and the fear of judgment, the fear of abandonment was so strong at such a young age that I grew up confused and unwanting to be who I was and unwanting to face life the way it was. So when I finally found something to make me feel different than what I felt on a daily basis, I was for it.
Just took off with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of my using has been a drug that fits the lifestyle that I was in. And so like, let's say my heroin use, I wanted to be alone. I did not want to be with people. Heroin is a solitary drug. You might use it with like one person, you might use it with your significant other, which is a huge part of my story myself. So it's always easier to use with someone than you have someone always to rely upon that's just as bad as you, right?
So basically, wouldn't make it feel like it was such a big deal.
Yeah,
When you had
you'd
someone
always have someone to fall back on. Someone that was as morally corrupt as you. So you never had to justify what you were doing. But so you take that, but then let's talk about like my cocaine addiction, my gambling, like the drinking, cocaine, and gambling that all revolved around each other. It's in a group setting most often, right? So it's like once I started to reach outside myself and grow past, like, I got out of the heroin addiction, I fell into this, and I fell into this part of my life. I was more of a social creature at that point. I had found a little bit of help, I had learned a little bit about myself, but then I fell back into horrible habits with something completely different. Now, like that, my drug abuse and my addiction to anything has always followed where I was as a person and like what I was comfortable with. Did I want to be alone? Did I want to be with people? Was I okay? That kind of thing. So
I guess.
yes. So the answer is yes. I definitely knew that. I definitely knew at some point that I was probably going to be using. Did I understand to the extent and what I was going to be doing? No. I would have never thought heroin, but maybe I would have thought drinking to excess. Maybe I thought like smoking every single day, but not to a point of like it helping, but to a point of being stupid, like to a point of, excess. So
Maybe you could expand on this a little bit. I mean, maybe it's a common misconception, not maybe misconception, but like marijuana is a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah?
I mean, so I couldn't necessarily say the marijuana was the gateway, but I think the circle was the gateway.
Brought you around people.
Yeah. So I don't think it was the actual use of marijuana, like me getting high off marijuana, because I would have got high off something. But I think it was because I joined a friend group that smoked, that I was introduced to other friend groups or other people that these things slowly branched off from. So while I can't say marijuana is inherently bad, I can say that it does there is a connection there to other people who could be worse. So I won't ever want to say that it's marijuana in itself, but I would say that there is always a connection, that there is always a possibility that one person will be around to smoke with you guys that does something more. That's where the gateway would be. So
Okay. I've never gotten that inside take from somebody who has your background. I want to pry a little bit more. What's thinking into chronological order here? What was the first time you used a hard substance?
the first time I used, I think I was like 14. I think it was cocaine was the first thing that ever hard drug that I'd used was cocaine. So it was that. I think heroin, the first time I had ever tried heroin was it was at a hot tub, and I think it was 17. So, but my heroin addiction did not start at 17. Let me say that. It was the first time I had used it.
You tried it.
I had tried it, and I think I didn't know what I was looking for, but like I felt great, but I got sick, and I got sick pretty quick. So, I think it was, to be honest, the beginning of my worst of worst was when I started doing opiates, but with perk 30s. And that was 18.
And this is way before, fentanyl is huge right now.
Fentanyl is huge.
This is way before that scene, right?
Yeah, so I was in the little area right after 80s, right after Oxy 80s, and before fentanyl. So it was like the perk 30 age and let's be honest, they were so expensive that it was such an easy leap of, you could buy one for $30, or you can go find heroin for much cheaper. You can go buy a point for $10, 0.1 gram. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are you going to do?
So it's cheaper to go that route.
It is so much cheaper. And I think the graduation from, my graduation from use was from snorting to smoking, snorting perks to smoking perks to shooting perks was probably 3 or 4 months. The shooting being IV use.
So it happened relatively fast.
Yeah, it's just like in an addict's mind, in I should say a maladapted mind. I shouldn't say an addicted mind. In a maladapted mind, needing more, having a need to be more than themselves. It's you want the most, and why waste it when you can have more? So
That's holy cow.
Sorry, yeah.
Walk us through what someone who is in the scene that you were in, that is struggling with addiction. What's the day-to-day scene like?
Oh, yeah, keep going.
You wake up and
so it is from when you wake up to the end of the day, it's about finding money. Because me, unlike some other addicts who are probably in a better position with money, I didn't know how to hold down a job. I lived off my family, and I would steal. And most unfortunately for my family was the easiest people to steal from because they were the closest people in proximity, right? So it's either I'm going to rob someone and I'm going to tell them I'm going to get them something, get their money, and I'm not going to give it to them. or I'm going to go into their place when I know they're not there.
When you were in, not to cut over, but
Yeah.
when you were in, just to branch off that, when you were in active addiction, did you even feel bad when you were stealing?
So yes, I would say this. So if in the very beginning, in the very start of it, when I was still had a morality attached to what I was doing, yes, I cared. But it comes to the point where you're already so sick of who you are that like you keep getting worse, that you let go of it.
It doesn't
That's
matter
like,
after
why
a
does it?
while.
It's like the more I sit there and think about these shitty things I'm doing, it's like, what's the point? I'm already a bad human.
Like, what's the point of
What's the
holding on to
point?
morals anymore?
Exactly. So while maybe after I got high, maybe after that need of getting high was gone, then I'd feel remorse. But it was only because then you have like clarity.
Right.
You know?
But but when you actually needed, nothing else mattered but getting
Yeah.
that.
And that's literally the day. So like the whole day would be, how am I gonna get the money? And then once you have the money, who's gonna be available? And let me tell you, when you have, sometimes having the money and not being able to find someone is even worse. Like, so you asked about the daily thing. It was just like right before I left my mom's house right now, I remember that like, this is the insanity that comes with addiction. I remember stealing my parents' TV in their living room, going and selling it to my heroin dealer. And then they realize it's gone, but only after we came back from dinner. And then I sat there and lied to them saying someone else stole it. Like, how insane is it I know I'm not going to get away with that.
Right.
But I don't.
They obviously
yeah,
knew you took it.
exactly.
Right.
And it's like, I'm never going to get away with it, but I would not once think about it. I'll be like, I need it. It does not matter what happens after, as long as I get high. And I did. And I did do it, and I got high. And I still think I owe them for that TV. I'm not gonna lie. I think I do. Now that I think about it, probably shouldn't have brought it up. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom.
We'll start a GoFundMe for new What brand was the TV?
I don't even remember.
All right.
He says it doesn't matter. Good for what I need.
We've been kind of like on a dark decline here in this conversation.
Yeah.
I want to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
To what or to whom would you credit getting your life turned around?
My family, 100%. And I do have to give, I would have to say my mom and my dad. I would say emotionally, my mom was probably, the one thing I can say is my mom once told me, I will always help you get better, but I will never help you die. And it was, to this day, I can still hear her saying it, and it was one of the biggest things I had ever heard, because after that, she stopped co-signing my bullshit. And she stopped allowing me to do the things that I had always kept doing, just leaving, coming back. She put her foot down, money that started going missing. She said no more. It's like, once I finally lost that part, and I knew I lost her emotionally, who my mom is, I absolutely adore my mom. And I
know, I see you with her all the
yeah,
time. Man. You love your mom.
Yeah, she was always going to be one of the biggest parts. And if I did not have her, and I also want to give my father his due too. He was there with her, and it caused a lot of problems between them. And there's a lot of regret and guilt there now, coming out of it after this long, knowing how much strain that put on them. But I would thoroughly have to say my mom has, she raised 4 girls, and she did the best that she did. 4 girls and me, and my dad also. They raised them. They had barely had anything. They went from a trailer. My dad continued with his success. My mom continued with her teaching, and they tried to do everything for all of us. And while they did focus on me and my problems, which has caused a lot of personal stuff in our own family, they never gave up on me, and my mom still continues to support me in my in where I'm at right now, and which is not something a lot I can say about anyone else, So
That's love.
yeah, and
That's love, dude.
and I absolutely adore her, and I absolutely love my mom. Even though we fight, even though that we argue, we always know that there's love at the end of the day. It's never a this is the end kind of fight. It's always like we'll come back to it kind of fight. So yeah, I'd say
So,
my
like,
mom.
although it caused a lot of problems, do you feel like it kind of brought you guys closer?
So I would say me and my mom, maybe me, there's a lot of personal conflicts that are in my family, and I don't feel comfortable speaking on them in a way, because at least for me, I don't think speaking on their personal lives brings me any benefit. If there is anything to deal with, it can be dealt with within the family. It doesn't need to be public. But there is growth to be had on all in all facets of our lives. And I don't believe holding people emotionally hostage for things that you're now doing yourself is fair. And that is what I'll leave it at. I'll leave that exact situation.
That's fair. That's fair. What would you tell someone? This is probably my favorite question for you. What would you tell someone who is listening to this, who is struggling with active addiction, or has someone in their life that's struggling? I guess it doesn't need to be one piece of advice, but just something you'd be like, "Yo, you need to hear this."
I would say I'm gonna actually approach those things differently. So I'm gonna say for someone who's using and listening to this right now, there is better days, and what I never would have understand going through what I did is that my 30s would be my best years. I look at my 30s and I was like, there's no way I'll even live that long. I can tell you that I wake up with a completely different sense of what life is. And I can tell you that no matter what kind of painful things that you had been through, that there is still a chance to get better. And there is love for you in this world. You just have to find it. And if you think that you've lost something that you can't get back, there's plenty out here that you can find. When it comes to someone that you know, I'd say it's a little bit different. I would tell you that it is not your fault, and it is not your responsibility to fix someone when they don't know how to fix themselves. I would tell you that you are absolutely allowed to love them, but don't kill them. Don't supply them with money, and don't supply them with excuses not to get better. If it takes some sort of boundary for them to get help, put that boundary up. I'm not saying to leave them, and I'm not saying to let them die on the street, but I am telling you that there are healthier ways for yourself and your own self to be okay. Because at the end of the day, it does not matter what you do for them, they will continue to use until they are ready to stop.
Or dead.
And unfortunately, and it is extremely sad, that almost everyone that I know, there's a few people that I'm super grateful for. Good job, bud. There are a lot of deaths, and I've been to a lot of funerals, and there's a lot of good people that I'll never be able to say you'll make it to. But there are a lot of good people that made it, and I'm proud of almost every single one of them. Actually, I'm proud of every single one of them.
Oh, man.
I got one more just to kind of wrap up my end of things before I'm going to bounce it over to Sheldon. What challenges have you carried into sober living from your time that you spent battling with addiction?
It's my, sorry.
You gotta be sorry.
You need the nicotine. I'd say it is literally, it's almost unbreakable character habits. Being the victim of any situation, no self-reflection, wanting to blame other people for the issues that you're going through. These are all things that I needed to break. These are all things. How to believe that someone can actually love you without abandoning you. So I'd say the biggest things is literally how you treat life. It's about how you carry yourself every single day to wanting to be better and not sitting stagnant. It's not about standing still. It's about what do you want? The thing is I always just wanted to be a better person, and I just wanted to be happy with who I was. And what I would say is those unhealthy mind spaces and those victim mentalities that I often put myself in, I really had to break that to get better and to be a different person, to even want better.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
100%, my man. Well, my questions are going to take a little bit different of a turn, but I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going to roll these two questions together. So the first time you used heroin, how did it make you feel? So basically, what was the good part like?
Okay. So the good part, to avoid the whole war story, it made it yeah. So it made me feel different, and that's what I needed. It made me feel. So the physical part of the drug.
So it wasn't even really the euphoria.
No, trust me, it was the euphoria too. I won't ever put it past that. This is one thing. It's drugs feel good. They do. I mean, like, and that is a universal. That's whether someone has an addiction or not. They can do something and understand how good it feels. That's there, and it's you know what I mean. That's a huge part of it. Don't get me wrong, but like,
But not the actual driving factor.
yeah, I think it was more of the driving factor of why I kept going with not just the heroin use, but use altogether, is because the moment, again, I was sober and inside myself and with all my confusion, I didn't know how to function as a human being. But when I was high on heroin, I didn't need to. And I didn't need to fight what I was thinking, and I didn't need to fight who I was, because it didn't matter. Because it felt so good, because I was quiet. And there's always been a voice inside my head that I'm fighting with. And like, while some people, like, I imagine that you guys hear yourself speaking, like you hear yourself speaking to yourself. Sometimes it's like mine is consistently going and judging my own actions and judging how I'm in front, who I look like in front of people, or what does this person want from me? And it's almost every single time a negative thing. And when I did heroin, I didn't hear that shit at all. I didn't hear a single thing. All I heard was I fell into just this dark, deep black that was perfect and silent. And that's what I wanted. Like, that's what I had been looking for so long. And it's like, I would say, and it's unfortunate to say, I found it at the right time. I found it at a time where obviously I wish I would have knew other routes that I could have taken, but it probably saved me in the way that I probably would have, like, ended things much sooner. And I don't ever want to glorify its use, because it is horrible and it steals people away from their families. But at that point, it probably kept me here to get to this point.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, that kind of answers this question, but I still kind of want to ask you, like, if you could put your finger on it, like, what were you running from? Were you running from being lonely? Like,
so there's a ton, and like, I don't know, is there going to be a question about like the traumas I was in? Because I can put the
you can bounce all that with this, man.
Okay, so like so if anyone's wondering, the entirety of my story is, so when I was a child, I had already felt different than other people. There is a certain dynamic that you are in a family with, you know, my mom, 4 girls, and my dad. So my dad was gone a lot, so I never had this male role model consistently there. My parents had a very dysfunctional, and I don't mean to speak on their story, but there was a very dysfunctional, and I won't tell their stories, but it was more common to hear screaming in the house than it was to hear quiet. And when you hear silence, it's almost more nerve-wracking than it is to hear screaming. And so like,
so trauma.
So there's like this thing you're growing up on, and you're watching what you imagine love is supposed to be, right? So you're watching you're seeing your parents, and like the respect that's there between them, and it's non-existent. I don't have a father who's there all the time, so I have no example of what a man is supposed to be. And so this is like a little bit of the core. I was sexually assaulted as a child, and it was by a man. And so as you're being repeatedly assaulted, it ends up being very confusing, because it's no longer painful, and you know it's going to happen, that there becomes pleasure. So as a young man, not understanding anything about sexuality, but knowing that it's wrong, and having a man doing these things to you, especially someone that you know and you know extremely well. And it is very confusing, because you grow up with this uncertainty of who you are, and is this something that you want just because it feels good? And it broke me as a kid, and I didn't know who I was, because I was so confused about that when I came into my own sexuality, I used women in a very like unhealthy way to prove to myself that I was straight, because that was what it was, right? So I was like scared that I wanted it, that I used all of that sexual stuff. So this is my first addiction, right? So like, I'm using female attention as this way of trying to fix the insecurity and from what happened. Yeah. And I'm looking, and I don't have a male figure to understand what being a man is like. So I'm trying to fill in all these gaps with anything that's around me. So I don't know, and I see what I do see of a man is he's yelling at a woman, and he's yelling at my mom, obviously, So I'm so confused. What am I supposed to do? Who am I? And it's that. And then I finally found drugs, and none of that shit mattered. None of it. It's funny because you'll see like my whole story. I used and abused sex and women all the way up till I found heroin, and then I'm in long-term relationships because I can then just be with one person and I don't have to be alone.
You don't have to use the woman as that way to cover that trauma, because now the heroin is covering that.
Yep. So those are really big parts, and of course there's other things. There's really unhealthy relationships, and there's a lot of war stories that I could go through, but like those are huge parts. And what like it really came down to is I did not know who the fuck I was. I did not, because I used so many other things to, like, I was a different person to everyone around me because I just needed to fit in. And then like even my closest friends in high school or like when I was young, they just thought I was weird. And I found out the people I'm closest to don't even know who I am, right? So it's like, yeah.
No, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
This one's gonna take a little bit different of a role. So like when you would come down, what was that like? What was the come down like?
Yo, I'm gonna tell fucking horrible. Yo, oh my God. So like, it's like being dope sick. So it's like, there's different sicknesses for like everything, but I'm gonna tell you like, so dope sick is like, so your intestines start moving again because there's opioid induced constipation. So everything you've been holding on to for 2 weeks starts to move. You have a flu, you have a fever, your skin is fucking crawling, you're sweating all over yourself. There is no single moment of feeling okay. It is within 18 hours
Sounds
after.
like hell.
Yeah, dude. So within 18 hours. So this is another driving force as to why you're stealing. This is another force as to the moment that you wake up. Not only the impulsion of needing to get high, but the anticipation of being sick.
Are you actually almost scared to get sick?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a true fear of like withdrawal. There's a true fear, like, because no one wants to feel that.
Did you have like a timing figured out of like
18 hours from my last use?
And like you knew that it was gonna hit? Okay.
Yeah, there's some people, and like that's the thing. Like I said, I didn't have the money, and I didn't have the connections that some people did. Some people did way more than me, and they would go into withdrawal so much sooner. Probably be going to bed and waking up sick.
That had to have been an insane amount of stress always having to make sure.
I mean, yeah. But like there was never any skin off my back because I was willing to do whatever it took.
Right, to get to the next high.
There's very few things I did. I never sold myself for drugs, but I know a lot of people that did.
Right.
And you know, the thing is how easy that is because it's something that is free. It is something that you have, and it's something that's so easily taken by other people that it is like a lot of people go that far. And while I never did, I made videos for people and stuff like that, but I never physically gave myself.
Right.
And it's like, you will do whatever you want, the sick that you feel. And then there's always like, if you, like we're talking about meth or we talk about cocaine, like that, the anxiety withdrawals that those come with, and like how that like physically it might feel different, their withdrawals, but like, if you've ever met someone on meth who finally slept after 4 days, comes out, and then they start needing again, how much they've damaged themselves, how like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Man, well, I'm gonna bounce off that. And I'm gonna go, what was the craziest thing you've ever seen when you were using?
So the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Or things. By any means, you can tell a few stories.
So the craziest personal thing I could probably ever say is like, I mean, you go to the trap house and you go there enough that like, you'll see plenty of stuff. But so like I would have to say the craziest thing that happened to me is like I biked 3.5 miles into I think it was like 3.5-4 miles in the rain in like further into Milwaukee. And then I fucking fell off my bike behind my heroin dealer's car. So I'm soaked in water, right? And I try to get into his front seat, and he puts his hand on his gun in the front seat, and he told me to get the fucking back. And, he was pissed.
Because you're all wet and stuff?
I'm wet. I'm getting into his car. He's like, don't ever fucking do this again, right? So I'm sitting as I get into the back seat, and he was like fucking pissed at me. And, like, I've been threatened before and like stuff like that, but like an honest, raw, like he looked like he had an honest and raw hate for me, and it felt different that time because, like, you know, when you are using, you're used to being called a junkie.
Right.
You're used to being called or put down even by dealers that, like, you know, don't fuck with you. You're there for them. They're there for the money.
Basically, you're a pest.
Yeah, like you're not one of the boys. You're literally just giving them money, right? So I would have to say that was probably one of the like worst. That's just the one that comes to my mind because it's so vivid. But dude, that was a terrible ride, dude. That was a terrible bike ride. That sucked. And then probably the most disgusting thing I'd ever seen was probably one of the first times I ever went to a trap house. I saw a young girl, like probably like 16, being whored out, being her body being sold, and I don't know who the girl was or if it was family or what. But she didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. She kind of just like, it was just like a lead her to the bedroom. Someone went in, he came out, and you know this girl's young. You know, like at the time I couldn't have been too much older, probably like within 20 or something. But then, yeah, maybe 21. I don't remember.
Well, when you finally did quit, talk to me about the process of withdrawal.
Okay, so when I did quit, I had a lot of attempts at sobriety. So is this when I really got sober?
Yeah, when you actually finally put that sword in the
Yeah.
stone and said, "This is it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this no more. I'm done."
So the last time I ever went through being sick, I actually was the time I was arrested and sent to MSDF. So I got pulled over. This is something I actually want to bring up. So the first and only time I ever had a really good interaction with a police officer is he was a state trooper. So I had taken my mom's and dad's car and I'd stolen money from them, and I was driving back towards Milwaukee with their money in their car. So he pulled me over because the plates were bad, and I had a warrant for my arrest because I had been absconding from my probation officer, and he calmly told me that I had a warrant, and he just asked me to keep my hands up, and he treated me with respect, and I told him like where my needles were because I didn't want him to poke him, and just told him where my needles were and everything like that, and he sat there with me, and he's like, "I just hope the best for you," and he let me call my mom. He let me call my mom, have her meet us before I went in, knowing that I was going to be gone for a long time. And he actually drove us to a parking lot where my mom got to meet me and got to say goodbye to me before I left. And that was probably one of the most profound moments where I was like, not every human has to be bad just because people say they're bad. And that was in another way of like, if every junkie is bad, then who am I?
So
Or
in
if every
theory, his
cop is
love
bad.
kind of pushed you towards.
Yeah. Yeah,
fuck
and
this.
that's it. It's like that's another reach back to like when there comes to respect, and once I was treated like a human being again,
Right.
when I was treated like a real person, like it was profound to me and it meant a lot. And
So that almost blew your mind when that cop showed you that much
dude,
respect
you
and
think-
love, and you're like, "Oh, I'm a human."
yeah, because I never had imagined that. I would like, let's be honest. I imagined get the fuck out of the car. You know, like you know how like what you assume is going to happen doesn't.
The stigma, basically, that
and
pertains to
that's it. There's a stigma to that too, and it's all based on, I don't know, different things. But so when I got brought to Sheboygan County, they knew I was going to be withdrawing, so they kept me separate. And that's the worst, dude. Being in a room all by yourself in a fucking cell, getting sober, sick. You know, they keep you away from general population. But
So you're just in there alone, nobody else.
Yeah, dude. And they keep you in there for 3 days, I think. I'm pretty sure it was 3 days, 72 hours. And then they finally put you in, but you're still not feeling any better. You don't want to talk to no one. You don't want to be friends with no one. It's like, I don't know. I might have lived a certain lifestyle, but I also like, you know, I don't like, I've never liked people who carry them certain ways. If they're like so good, they're like the coolest people, super big egos. I've never liked that. I've always stayed away from that, and that's always what jail is. But yeah, so back to the point.
You're good, buddy.
Yeah, so I just had to get through it. I just had to put my head down. It was something that you cannot escape. It was something, and also I'm grateful that I was taken away from the situation, because if I had been getting sober at home, there's always a chance of me going out to find something, you know. Being alone, being on your own power, you'll almost find a reason to go get high. You know what I mean? You'll find some sort of reason.
Anything will set you off, and you're like,
Yep. So yeah, and multiple attempts at that. Almost, to be honest, I was never good at getting sober alone or at home. It was always at a detox or in a situation I was forced to.
in a professional setting.
Yeah, that, or because I had absolutely no money and I was never able to find money, or I wasn't able to find drugs that I was forced to. It was never on my own choice that I was I was forced into it because one reason or another.
And this is kind of going backwards, but it's whatever. At what point did the drugs stop becoming fun and become a need?
Oh man!
Like, this is almost for the younger crowd that thinks popping pills and all this thing is okay. Like, how quick did it snowball?
So it's like you are so quick to lie to yourself. Like I can't, not them. I was so quick to lie to myself to say, oh, this isn't a problem. It's like once I realized that I was giving up almost everything. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped showing up to friends' house. I stopped doing all these things because I wanted to get high. And I was saying this, well, it's not because I need it. It's just because, oh, it just makes me feel better because this or that. I was abandoning everything and just lying to myself. And that's that moral part, right? So we're trying to make excuses for the decisions we're making, but our choices are saying something different. That's one huge core aspect of addiction, is we're telling ourselves something in our head, but our bodies are doing something different. And scientifically, there's a reason for that. And I don't know if we'll get into it or you want me to explain it later on, but there's a reason for that exact thing. And
dive right into
it, so there's been studies that show that addiction takes over the amygdala, and the amygdala is a part of your brain that's the reptilian part. So it is a part that you don't hear speaking. It's not one that makes moral decision. It's not one that chooses yes, no, that's the fight, flight, or freeze. It's the one that chooses your instincts when you need to sleep, eat, that kind of thing. What it does is it actually hijacks that, and it takes the most important part. It will put everything else behind it because it releases the most dopamine, the most serotonin, all of that. So what it does is it actually hijacks and puts it into the most important part, that it has already made a decision I think it's 15 seconds before the moral part of your brain can catch up and actually say yes or no. So you're
already driving.
Yeah. So that's someone will be like, no, I'm not going to get high, as they're in the fucking car going. They were already literally doing something, or took a left when that's where their dealer lives, saying, oh, I'm not going there. It's so that's the scientific part of it. But of course, in the beginning, it's probably not like that. You just want to get high. But I'll tell you pretty fucking quick that it became unfun pretty fast. Probably the first time I ever had to steal, because I knew at that point, it's that's not just.
Could you say within months?
Oh, for sure. Dude, the progression, the graduation of each one of those steps, I knew by the time I had a needle in my hand, I'm like, this is not about being fun.
Right.
This isn't about being fun.
Because that's almost got to be scary too, not to cut you off, but you're having all this fun, then all of a sudden it's just like a snap of a finger.
Yep.
I'm guessing you're like,
yep,
this isn't fun.
Yep. I still remember the apartment kitchen where it was actually someone else's needle that I used. They cleaned it out with water and soap. I'm very lucky to this day to not have contracted or gotten anything.
You get sick from that, man.
Yeah, and I remember they had just used it and they were faded while they were doing this cleaning, and then they stuck it into my arm, and that was the first time I ever felt that. And the difference of high was uncomparable, and it was unfortunately, it was what I really wanted out of it. Yeah.
And I mean, we have talked about your mom and dad, but I still want to bounce this off you. How much did your drug use affect your family, your sisters?
Horrible. So that's
grandparents.
Yeah. So my grandparents, not so much. They weren't a very large part of my growing up. Mm-hmm. While I still loved them, of course, they weren't necessarily extremely close. So they weren't really involved in our direct lives.
So your choices in that time didn't really.
Yeah. So it wasn't a thing where I'd often see them, even though one of them was pretty close. close. I didn't know my grandfather or my mother's father. But so actually my addiction caused a lot of problems in my family, and there's a lot of resentment that has built up because of the attention and the time and the money that was spent on me.
Right.
And I know that there's resentment that they felt that they were ignored.
Your sisters?
Certain sisters felt ignored while they needed help. But there is also responsibility on their part that at moments they denied help and they pushed people away. And at what point are you supposed to help someone when they deny help?
Right.
And when are you supposed to give that help back? And I never would have wanted that for my family, and I would never have wanted to cause the strain that I put on my mom and my dad, because it's so unfair that there was a lot of fights and a lot of separation that I caused. And there, like I said, there is guilt there. But I will say is when it comes to my sisters, everyone is an adult now. There's a lot of words that can be said, and there's a lot of talking behind people's backs. But the truth is we're all adults, and when you're exhibiting and doing the same behaviors that hurt you, that your mom and dad did that hurt you, and now you're doing that to your own children, I'm going to tell you that there's something more that you need to look at, or something you need to work on, or something that we need to talk about to get past. And if you're going to continue to deny that, again, I'm not going to say anything specific, and I probably shouldn't have even went that far out of the respect for my family. But I do have love for all of my family, whether I want to admit that or not. Everyone is doing the best with what they have, but there needs to be growth, and it can't just be blame all the time. Yeah.
No, I feel like you've probably answered this question, but maybe we could put an actual pin on the head.
Yeah.
What was the actual final straw? Was it getting pulled over in that cop, or was there a breaking point where you're sitting in a room and you're like, dude, I just can't do this anymore?
I think my breaking point, unfortunately, I had so many attempts at sobriety to this point. I had so many attempts. I had went to Arizona to get sober, and I went to Milwaukee to get sober, and Nova I went, and so I knew what it was to be sober, and it kept going back to using, that it was more miserable every single time. There's no more fun to be had.
So you felt more ashamed almost
Yeah.
every time you go back.
Yeah, because because then when you've been in treatment enough, you know what you're doing.
Right.
Trust me, you've been through enough, you've been through enough therapy, you've been through enough counseling, you know what the actual problems are, and you're just going back. The drug abuse is not the problem. It is the solution to your problem. The using fixes what's wrong inside you.
100%.
And that it's just the truth. So the thing is I had wanted to so bad that when that finally came around, and I there's other things I think when I was locked up, I lost who I thought at the time was the love of my life, and I think that's actually when I told myself I'm done, this isn't what I want. Heartbreak. Yeah, and while her and I eventually did fix things, and we both actually are still still good. She has, I think, a really similar sobriety date to heroin. We were just different people then. We didn't have using to fix the problems.
So once you took that out, there was less similarity. That was your similarity.
Well, and I had a lot of resentment, and I still am not the person I am now. Back then, I hold a lot of resentment, and I blamed her for a lot of things. And I'm going to be honest, I treated her really poorly. And while there's a part, I have since tried to apologize for the person I was after I came out. I really think it was because I had so many attempts at sobriety, and that finally broke me, that I had no one to blame but myself, because I was there. No one else put me there. No one else put me in MSDF, maybe the Department of Justice did. But my actions were the reason I was there, and I was done. I was so tired of it. And thankfully something changed, and I no longer had that obsession and need.
So basically when you finally started blaming yourself.
But when I finally chose that it was me and nothing else, and that there was no excuse anymore. There's no excuse to get high. But it also took a lot of work, and it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of failure to get to that point. And I still failed past that. I still struggled with the gambling, the coke and stuff after that, because I had I thought I was stronger than it, and that it wasn't a problem till it was a problem. And again, it took me to come to a point that I knew I needed help and I needed to do something different. I just thought I knew what I was doing again. So there's always room for growth. And now trying to remain humble in all my affairs is probably my biggest thing now, is understanding that like no matter what I do, I can always fall back. I will never be the best. I will never be the greatest. I will always be somewhere in the middle. And you know what? Being in the middle is fucking okay with me. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. But yeah.
Well, and then the last one I got for you, which take your time and you can go as long as you want, my man, but it takes courage to do an interview like this, my man. I really appreciate that first and foremost. But to the viewers out there who are fighting the same thing that you're fighting right now, what do you have to say to them?
I just tell you that you're not alone, and that there's love to be had. And I think I maybe even said in the beginning there's love to be had in this world, and you are deserving of it. And you will always be you'll always be the cause of you getting sober, but you'll always be the cause of you getting high again. You just have to choose what's worth what. And you have to see that you have to understand that your self-love is the most important thing at the end of the day. Your self-worth and what you're willing to do. If you put half the amount of energy you did into using, you'd be sober. If you put half the amount of energy you spend judging yourself every single day, you would love yourself, and it will be different. So I guess if you're watching this and you need help, just ask for it. Do it in any way that you can, whether it's the program or whether it's smart recovery or it's outreach, something, there's so many options that you can choose, and whatever one works for you and whatever one applies to your soul most, do it, because you deserve it.
Appreciate you, Jordan.
Yeah.
From the bottom of my heart, and I think Sheldon can say the same thing, I'm humbled. I am honored to got to hear that. So that's all we have for you today on the first episode of The Honest Hustle. A big thank you to Jordan for taking time to come tell his story. Thanks to all of our supporters that we've been, from our DMs to our email to all the likes, interactions. It's been crazy. So
we appreciate all the support, sincerely.
Jordan, is there anybody you want to shout out or say to the listeners before we sign off here?
I guess I just want to thank anyone who is watching this and anyone who has made it to this point. Thank you. And I hope you support their journey. And I'm very grateful to be here and for them to invite me here. So I'm hoping that this can continue to be something huge. So thank all of you guys, and thank you for all the shares and the likes and the love, honestly. Yeah.
Shout out if there's anybody else out there that has a similar story to Jordan's and would like to share with us, feel free to DM us at Honest Hustle.
Shout out Jordan's mom after he
Yeah, I love that lady.
Penny.
Yeah, she's the best.
Love you, Mom.
Shout out Planet Fitness. That's what got us here together.
Planet Fitness.
Planet Fitness brought us all together.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So disclaimer, me and Sheldon, we're both new at this, so we'd love to hear your feedback, your comments, your questions, and more. If you're like, yo, the camera angle sucks, or like the lighting, we'd love to hear it. So
yeah.
The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you got, give it to us, please.
Yeah, and I've been moving around a lot, so I hope this hasn't been bumping all the time, because that's going to suck.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah.
If you like the type of content we brought you today, make sure to give the show a like, follow, or subscribe. You can find us on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Honest Hustle out.